welcome back to the ABC of EDC with me, Rick Flatt, your host through everything, everyday carry. How you doing? I hope you're well. Today we've got a little bit of a watch review. A friend of mine got a great little watch and he sent in for a review, so we're going to have a look at it. But before we do that, quick bit of business. Take a moment if you're watching on YouTube to like, subscribe, and press the little bell icon. Just helps us know who's watching. You can comment, interact however you want. You might also be interested in our sister channel on here on YouTube, the Flat Earth Podcast. Don't worry, we're not weird. My last name's Flat. You work it out. There's a link for it somewhere here. Check out the content on there. Basic podcast stuff, in-studio guests, stuff like that. Anyway, to the review. So, my friend bought a little micro brand watch. Saw it a while ago. Liked the look of it. Liked the price. By a little company called Baltic. So he put his hard-earned moolah down, and a couple of months later, this little watch turned up. He paid, I think, 545 quid for it. Yeah, it's not too bad for a micro brand, I guess. It's got a few features that we'll look at, small seconds, and we'll work it out. We'll have a little look. So let's get into it. And it's the Baltic. I think it's the MR01. Like I say, 545 of your hard-earned money, or rather, a tank of diesel or 1 day of electricity or gas at the moment. Anyway, let's flip the cameras to above and we'll unbox this sucker, and then I'll meet you back here for like a bit of a roundup. So here we have the Baltic, basic sort of card box, matte finish, quite nice. Let's just let that come out of there. Oh, here we go. We've got a nice kind of, I wouldn't say premium, but they've put a little bit of effort in. They've got a nice cork kind of finish texture to it, just Baltic in basic text. Feels sturdy enough. It's a box within a box, you know what I mean? Now here's the big show. Here's the thing that we've come to look at. This Baltic, small seconds. And yeah, man, like I say, my friend picked this up. He loves it. I like the look of it. I think it's a very, very pretty watch. Let's have a proper look at it. And here we go. Like I say, it's a pretty little thing. Let's get some measurements on this. So it is, I think it's 36 mils what it is. Let me just double check. There you go. Like 36.1, but probably 36 if I was measuring it in a different spot. Thickness wise, we are looking middle for diddle. About 10 mil really, between 10 and 10.5 mil probably. The lugs I know, but we'll check anyway, just because that's what you do. Lugs are 20 mil pretty much. Lug to lug is just under 44. Wow, that's cool. That's kind of a good size, man. Do you know what I mean? My preferred watch kind of, and it's going to depend on watch, but I love a 40 mil, a 40, 11 thick. I love a 20 and then a 45, 46 between. That's kind of my sweet spot for my wrist, but whatever, man. This is a pretty watch, there's no doubt. And I'll stick some macros in because this overhead shot's not going to do it justice. But, mate, especially the back, that micro rotor movement there, mate, it's juicy. Like I say, I'll throw some more macros in that. Thanks, Studio Rick. This is overhead macro shot, voiceover Rick, and I'm here to take you through a few more details of this watch. Like I say, it's a lovely looking watch, and on the face of it, very simple, but the more time I spent with it, the more I realised, man, there's a lot of textures, a lot of finishes, a lot of manufacturing and thought gone into this watch. The majority of that dial, which is actually, surprisingly hard to get true video or photos of the colour and the textures, but the majority of that dial is this kind of finish. It's kind of a not grainy, I think the technical term is bobbly. Yep, it's bobbly. The dial's got a bobbly finished, but that's offset by that sub dial with an entirely different finish, and the polished applied hour markers again with an entirely different finish, but somehow it works. The polished hands on both the main dial and the sub dial, again tying up with the markers and the polishing of the case, just makes for like a delicious looking watch. And like I say, elegant, simple, but when you get looking at it in detail, you get this thing under a loom, and suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, like it's not a loom, it's a loop, isn't it? You get it under a loop, under a magnifying glass. Anyway, moving on. Here's that bobbly texture with those polished applied hour markers. You see just the depth of it. And as you move from that, which is a majority of the dial, onto the sub-dial, you see again the sub-dial's got this other finish, these concentric circles, and again another track around the circumference of that. It just is a beautiful looking watch. You flip the thing over, you look at that micro rotor, and it's lovely to look at. And there's a bit of decoration gone on, a little bit of pelaging, I think is the name, and some bluing of the screws, and a little bit of finishing. It's not immaculate. It doesn't stand up under a massive examination, but it's lovely. And it's all those little textures, those little applications that add to the whole that make this thing just a lovely little watch. And you know, just a pleasure to look at and move around in the light and see what goes on. Anyway, that's enough from voiceover macro shot Rick. Back to in studio Rick for a conclusion. So what's the conclusion on this watch? What do we think? Is this worth your hard-earned money? Is this worth your time? For me, it's a mixed bag. There's some things aesthetically that I really love about this. Well, look at that aesthetically. Look at that kind of language, man. That's a complicated word. It looks nice. I like the look of it, the polished case. A bit too small for me, but that's just a personal preference. I can mess with a 38 or a 39, but I think 36mm is just a little too small for me. I'm a big kind of guy. You know, my ideal thing is always the 40mm, to be honest with you. I can mess with a little bit smaller, but 36 too small. But like I say, that's just a personal choice. I love the look of this watch. I love the small seconds. I love the handset. I love the indices. I love the kind of shape and style of the case. It's a little bit of me. It really is. I like the open case back. I like a small rotor. I like the sort of some of the attempts at decoration and making the thing pretty. I like all that. This is all pluses for me. But there are a few minuses for me, and just three. Two that are actually really big, and one that's just a picky thing. I always love to see a crown that's engraved or marked or has a logo on it or something about it. This crown for me is just a little plain standard issue, just nothing on it. Just they could have done a little bit more. They sort of put a bit more flair into everything else, and they just chucked a basic shiny crown on there. You can keep that. So that's minor though, but it's a point. Now the next 2 points are actually real big things for me, and they're real problems, and it's actually going to lead my friend who lent this in to send this back to Baltic just to get it fixed, essentially. Now these could be just very particular things to this watch, or they could be indicative of quality control issues over at Baltic. We just don't know. I've not looked around. I'm not trying to mess with Baltic and upset anyone, but a couple of problems. First problem, now hopefully the microphone will pick this up. I'm going to put my finger on top of the watch and just move it, and this is the sound you hear. Can you hear that? I can see that the inputs coming through on my camera. That is my finger on the crystal, and it just moves. It's loose. The crystal, the glass is loose. Now you can even turn the glass around. It's almost like maybe there was a mistake of design, and they said they wanted to make this watch with like a unidirectional bezel, you know, and they said, and he got confused, and there was a young junior in the office, and he accidentally spec'd up a movable crystal and a fixed bezel instead of a fixed crystal and a movable bezel. I mean, that could be possible, but it's not possible. That's a silly thing. But that's, for me, this is unforgivable. That much movement means there's room. And when there's room in a bezel, that means moisture can get in, dust can get in. And pretty soon, man, bad times. Now, that leads me on to the second problem with this particular watch. My friend said that after wearing it for a couple of days, it kept really bad time. And I was like, well, what do you mean it keeps bad time? Like, how many seconds is it out? He goes, no. Like, it stopped. What do you mean, like it stopped? Yeah, it wouldn't stay wound. And he started to look at it and keep a better eye on it, because this has got a micro rotor, as we said in the macros. I showed you that, but it's also hand wound. And he found that he would wind it in the morning and be about during the day, and then at a certain point he'd look down and his watch would have stopped an hour ago. Now I think the problem is the small rotor there, the mini rotor, whatever you call it, it's just not spinning freely. There's something in there. Now, has dust and stuff actually got in because of the crystal issue? and started to junk up something in here. But either way, my friend said you've got to keep it hand wound. And the thing, and this isn't, you're not going to pick this up. When you wind this, there is just a bit too much resistance when you wind it. I've got a few automatic. I've got a manual wind only watch, and they don't feel like this. This is janky, man. There's something up with this. And these two faults, the crystal and it basically stopping, is leading my friend to actually send this back under warranty. And Baltic have been very good. They sent him a returns label and that he's going to be sending it back. And I imagine they'll just junk this actual unit and send him a whole new watch. And like I say, maybe this is just an unfortunate series of events that led my friend to getting what is a pretty dead watch, to be honest with you. Or maybe not. Maybe there's some quality control issues over at Baltic. I see at the moment, everywhere I go on Instagram and different watch places I visit on YouTube, everyone is reviewing another Baltic, a chronograph, and they want like $2,000 for that bad boy. And they're giving you extra clocks with it and all sorts of stuff. I'm like, dude, if this is kind of an example of their quality control, we're in trouble, because I've got watches like, here, look, point in case, right? And I know I always quote this because it's the watch it's my everyday when I'm doing stuff. But here is the Casio Dura, right? The Casio Marlin, the was it MVD 106 or something? I don't know, right? 45 quid. Now I know this is quartz, it's less complicated, but also it's cheaper and it's bulletproof. And you can smash it around. That crystal will not move. The bezel will still do everything it's meant to do. It will keep perfect time. This is 45 quid. This is 545 quid. 500 quid, half a grand more. And it's got these issues. Like I say, I don't want to beat Baltic up too much because this is a lovely looking watch. And if they were to get, if it proves out, my friend gets his other one, it runs perfectly great. And if they were to release this watch in a 40 for me or a 39, I'm on that all day, man. Anyway, quick one, in and out. I hope that was helpful. If you're thinking about buying a Baltic, don't let me sway you too much, but do move with some caution. And make sure you subscribe to the channel and keep up. And I'll update you. When my friend gets this, I'll do a little update. I'll let you know. I even went, listen to that. Like, I've bought watches off of AliExpress, little Chinese 60, 50 quid watches. And they haven't sounded like that. Bad times, man. Bad times. Anyway, that's a review. This has been the ABC of EDC. I've been Rick Flat, and it's been good to hang out with you. And I'll see you next one for whatever we're reviewing next. Later.